Hello and welcome to Arnie's Short Stories. I hope you enjoy this story. I'm going to try and upload a new story each day. The Screams of Alverstone Mill. The Isle of Wight was a place of natural beauty, but Holly Arnold knew its charm often masked something darker. The sun was setting as she arrived at Alverstone Mill, a dilapidated structure at the edge of a misty marsh. Its wheel was motionless, the once vibrant water channel clogged with weeds. Holly, a historian with an affinity for uncovering ghostly tales, had been drawn here by whispers of tragedy, a place where the air itself seemed heavy with sorrow. Local legend spoke of a fire that consumed the mill a century ago. The workers, men, women, and children were said to have been trapped inside as flames devoured the wooden beams and smoke choked the life from the walls. Some claimed to hear cries echoing through the marsh on moonless nights. Holly, with her ever-curious spirit, intended to uncover the truth. She pushed open the rotting door, its hinges protesting with an eerie screech. Inside, the air was stale, laced with the faint scent of charred wood. The ground floor was littered with debris, broken machinery, fragments of pottery, and crumbling bricks. Holly felt the chill despite her thick coat, as though the mill exhaled an ancient icy breath. Her torchlight danced across the walls, illuminating faded graffiti and scorch marks. In the center of the room, an old grinding stone lay cracked in two, as if it had given up under the weight of its history. Holly began snapping photographs, documenting her findings. But then she heard it, a faint, plaintive cry. She froze, her breath caught in her throat. It came again, louder this time, and unmistakably human. Holly spun around, her torch beam slicing through the darkness. "Hello," she called out. The only reply was the creak of the floorboards above her. Her pulse quickened as she debated her next move. The sound could easily be the settling of the old building or an animal skulking in the shadows. But something about the cry tugged at her, desperation that felt far too real. Against her better judgment, she ascended the rickety staircase. Each step groaned under her weight, threatening to collapse. The air grew colder with every step, biting through her coat and chilling her to the bone. On the upper floor, the remnants of the workers' quarters were scattered, rusted cots, a broken loom, and scattered personal belongings. The atmosphere was suffocating, the darkness pressing in around her. She swung her torch in a wide arc, and then she saw them. Figures. Translucent and flickering, they moved like smoke caught in a breeze. Men and women in soot-streaked clothing, children clutching ragged dolls. They didn't seem to notice her at first, their hollow eyes fixed on some unseen torment. One by one, they turned toward her, their faces etched with pain and despair. "Why are you here?" a voice whispered. Holly spun to see a young boy standing inches from her. His face was pale, his eyes wide and empty. Holly's instinct screamed at her to flee, but she steadied herself. "I'm here to help," she said. The boy's expression crumpled, and he looked away as if ashamed. "The fire, it came so fast, the doors wouldn't open, we screamed." His voice cracked, and a tear slipped down his ghostly cheek. Holly felt a lump in her throat. The boy pointed toward the far corner of the room, where a large chest sat partially hidden beneath rubble. "It's in there." As Holly approached the chest, the temperature seemed to plummet. Her breath came in visible puffs, and an oppressive energy pressed down on her shoulders. The lid was heavy, but she managed to heave it open. Inside, she found a journal, its leather cover blackened by soot but intact. Her hands trembled as she flipped through its pages, her eyes scanning the shaky handwriting. It was a record kept by the mill's foreman, detailing unsafe working conditions, locked exits, and an ignored warning about a faulty lantern, the very lantern that had sparked the inferno. The final entry was a hastily scrawled confession: "They won't let us leave. If we die, they die too." A sudden crash shattered the silence, and Holly whipped around. The figures had closed in, their hollow eyes fixed on her. "You must make them see," a woman said. Her face was gaunt, her features twisted in anguish. Holly nodded, clutching the journal tightly. "I will." The spirits began to fade, their forms dissolving into the air. The boy lingered the longest, his small hand reaching toward her before vanishing completely. The oppressive weight in the room lifted, replaced by a profound silence. But as Holly descended the stairs, she couldn't shake the feeling that she wasn't alone. The shadows seemed to shift and follow her, and faint whispers echoed in her ears. By the time she reached the ground floor, her torch began to flicker, casting the room into brief bursts of darkness. She moved quickly toward the exit, her heart hammering in her chest. Just as she reached the door, it slammed shut with a deafening bang. Holly screamed and yanked at the handle, but it wouldn't budge. The whispers grew louder, surrounding her. "You promise?" the boy's voice echoed. "I'll do it," Holly shouted, tears streaming down her face. Please." The door creaked open, and a cold wind pushed her outside. She stumbled into the marsh, her legs shaking. Behind her, the mill loomed in the fading light, its windows glowing faintly as if lit from within. The whispers faded, leaving only the sound of her ragged breathing and the distant croak of frogs. The next morning, Holly contacted local authorities and the media, sharing the journal and the story of the mill. Articles were published, memorials planned. The tale of Alverstone Mill and its lost workers spread far and wide, their names finally spoken aloud after a century of silence. Holly returned to the mill one last time. The air was lighter now, the marsh quiet and still. As she stood by the broken grinding stone, a soft breeze brushed her cheek, carrying with it the faintest whisper, "Thank you." Holly smiled, her heart full of both sorrow and relief. The spirits of Alverstone Mill had found peace, and their screams would haunt the marsh no more. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed this story. Please don't forget to like, and even better, like and subscribe. Thank you very much, and I hope you have had or have a great day.